same price. You know, it was like $4,300 then, and I pretty much got everything. And I started using it with all my patients. And people just really, and I was so resistant. I was the company even said, God, you were one of the most difficult people we've ever dealt with. Because I had to know why it works. I wanted to see such situations. Actually, I did have one, but I had a lifelong challenge with sleep. It just was never consistent, and I was running marathons. I've always had a very full life, and certainly being in this profession, I've had a huge practice, and I couldn't figure out my sleep issue. And I actually worked with other practitioners in Santa Fe, and I remember that I finally decided I'm going to get this sleep thing taken care of, and I made 5 appointments. I went to Bhutan. Like I said, that's my real passion in life, is to travel and learn from the indigenous people. But when I started using the mat, and after I came back from Bhutan, I realized that I was starting to sleep. I thought, wow, there's something really happening here. So I started sleeping, but I didn't understand why. So what was it in this technology that was really shifting my life? And I think that you all have that. I call the thermometer handout. And if there's so much to talk about in an hour and a half, and I do want to go over to how many people have not used this ever before? Is there anyone who's never used it? Okay. And how many of you are just considering like making the investment in your life here? Just okay, good. And this happens. I've been with this company for 7 years, so I've been through the bouncy times. I mean, just like the next innovation. This is my 3rd one, and just some things that haven't been perfect. I mean, this is like, I can't think of a better time to invest, because they had temperature control issues. So I took my IMRS to Mexico, and I got there and it didn't work because something in the plane. That was a real drag. So they've really fixed a lot of these things, and they've perfected, like especially the sound and light is way better. When I had the initial magnetic resonance stimulation, it's called the MRS 2000, it just had red lights. Now it's red, yellow, green for brain entrainment. So they've come a long way, and Wolfgang, who's the CEO of this company, is staying on top of everything. We're really proud to say, like when Beth mentioned it's considered one of the top PMF units in the world, because there's a lot of systems in place that have to be FDA approved. It's FDA registered here, and in Canada, what I've heard is it's actually considered a medical device. It's classified as a medical device in Canada. So that says a lot about how critically important this is. So anyway, I started sleeping. That was huge. I learned about this technology from Dr. Carmichael and Wolfgang, and I'm like, oh my God, like this is like a piece of gold, and I had no idea how powerful it is. And not only has it changed my lives, but my kids are now 14 and 16, but I've had this for 7 years, so you can imagine how much it's helped my children. So they're both soccer players, and I remember my one daughter got a burn. I'll show some slides. Even if you burn your finger, there's so many things, aches and pains, inflammation. Just inflammation is the bomb, right? That's what most of us have, a bit of it in our body. This technology really helps to reverse that. It's a cell-smart technology. Again, if we have healthy cells, we have a healthy body. So 7 years later, thousands of patients. I used to charge for every single treatment, an extra for the PMF, and now it's pretty much included in the treatment. However, if they come separately just to use this unit, then they pay for it, or they rent it out for a week. So it's just been a huge, really successful part of my business. And I feel honestly that it's the root. When we think about all of us who practice natural medicine, what's the root? If we create a field, because nothing's going to be better than nature, right? I call it the holy spark that is so absolutely necessary for us to feel well and to thrive, and even to feel, not only to experience happiness and joy. I mean, so many of us are indoors. We're spending an average of 95% of our entire lives indoors. And if we don't have nature, if we're not in the field, then we don't really feel good. So it's not surprising that 1/3 of the world is not sleeping. 1/3 of the world is depressed right now. Seriously, like right now. I've been to India, quite a few years ago, maybe about 5 years ago, and I could use my cell phone in like remote areas like I wouldn't be able to do in this country. So I mean, we pretty much are living in electrified times, and I kind of thought that would be a nice way to name this talk today: how to live healthy in electrified times. Because if what is most essential to our cells to work is these frequencies, which is like the Schumann resonance, 0.5 to 25 hertz, and we're living in 900 megahertz plus 2 gigahertz is what Wi-Fi is and beyond, and it's becoming more electrified. Everything, you name it, like light poles have different types of invisible electricity that we're being exposed to. but our indoor life is really challenging us. So it's no wonder that there are 30,000 known diseases. Does anyone know that? 30,000 known diseases on the planet. And I really believe there's a lot less. I think a lot of these new disease categories are coming up all the time, but the root of it is that we're not functioning because we don't have a healthy electrical field around our body. Everyone following me? Okay. So when I found this slide, I'm like, wow, this is so true. It is a benefit for mankind, for babies, for all people. And pretty much what's really important message, we don't just use this technology once in a while, once a week, twice a week. I mean, it's really becomes part of your life, just like you brush your teeth twice a day. You want to think about minimal to use this 8 minutes twice a day. Because what happens is our cells are like batteries. And so when we fortify our cells, we have a charge. And it's important to know that this is based on the Chinese clock, and I'll go into that maybe if we have time, but every time you use the mat, you're getting a good charge for about 6 hours. And you're getting exactly what your organs need at the time. So it's really important to look at your body in a whole different way. We're taught in medical schools, we look so much at our biology and our chemistry. How does our biological system work without understanding that we need a healthy electrical system first? And I'll be able to share what that looks like. So this big question, how do we stay healthy in an unhealthy world? Increasingly unhealthy world with, I mean, I said 30,000 known diseases, but we're exposed to about 80,000 different toxins at any given time too. Indoor pollution is crazy, what we're breathing in, but also again, living in these electrified times. So this is my book. I actually just came out like 3 or 4 months ago. And the reason I want to mention this is it really, I said this in the very beginning, but it's like when I think about my health manifesto, I think all the health practitioners, you have your own, right? Like, what have I really learned? What has really been life-changing in my search to offer my patients and my family and my friends the best possible health care? I put it in this book. And so, of course, I love to travel. It's a passion of mine. But, of course, the metaphor is how are you traveling healthy throughout life? And this PMF system, I just don't know how you can do it without, if you don't have nature on a regular basis or not in nature. And, of course, here it's so beautiful. But even people who live here, are we really spending the amount of time outdoors that our body really needs to thrive, right? So, very excited about this book, and I definitely mentioned PMF. I have a whole section on healthy technology, but I start with this because I know that this is really essential. So this is amazing what has happened in just a short period of time when you really think about 130 years, how we used to live and how we're living now. And I've become, everyone knows that there's Tesla coils in this mat, right? So Tesla to me is like my #1 genius of all time, my #1 favorite. I just think he was beyond brilliant. And even Einstein and so many others have followed the genius of this man who knew that we did not have to live in these electrified times like we have. So Tesla knew, he was quoted that in like 1885 that the advent of electricity would be a blessing and a curse to all of life. So when we look at, New York City, we look at major cities around this country and around the world, that there's much more percentage of autoimmune diseases. So MS, like the capital of multiple sclerosis, and ALS and other types of serious autoimmune diseases are very much centered in these cities. It's everywhere, but very much in New York happens to be where electricity was really, it was Tesla and Edison, right? So what are we going to do about this? We have to just think differently. So all the healthcare providers here, we cannot live like we lived even 10 years ago. We have to be so smart. How we're raising our children is completely different, but most of the world is completely in the dark with how these electrified times is affecting us. Like even when we think about blood sugar levels, when we think about toxicity levels, and why our bodies can't even detox chemicals out of our system, and our livers are working so hard, has to do with the fact that we're not in these fields that we're designed for, and it's causing us to we're struggling on a cellular level, so we're staying toxic. Dr. Magda Havas, just how many people, I know, Diane, you know who she is. She's a PhD from Toronto area. I've interviewed her several times and I've met her several times. She's considered one of the top experts on electromagnetic pollution. And Magda Havas. She's done more research than just about anyone to show what's happening to kids. Like when they say this is an epidemic of diabetes and obesity in our children, certainly it's diet, but a lot of it has to do with these fields that they're living in. They're not sleeping. A third of them are obese. When my kids were in grade school, I gave a career day presentation just on my profession and what I do. And I just asked these kids, about 50 kids in two different talks that I gave, how many of you are having trouble sleeping? Literally over half of them raised their hands. And I looked at their bodies and I could see that a lot of them are really struggling already with blood sugar regulation. And you know, when that happens, pretty much everything goes south in our body. So I'm just going back to my own personal story. What I found out, so I started sleeping, but I still thought, well, you know, what's wrong? Something's not right in my house. So I hired a guy named Dan Stye who wrote a book called The Healthy Living Homes. And he came into my house, and again, at the time, I really thought there was a mold issue, and he helped me. Again, I had been in healthcare for 15, 16, 17 years at the time, and I just couldn't figure out something's still not right in this house. And he spent a couple hours, and he said, there isn't a mold issue here. I don't see that at all. He said he had like a very sophisticated Gauss meter. And he said, what you have, and I said, when we go from your kitchen to your living room, through that window, look at this meter. It was off the chart, like the sound of it, and what was coming from this is really the true picture. I don't have this one in my book, but this is the picture of the cell tower. It's actually a water tower that serves 10,000 people water. So do you think this is affecting the water?
Oh, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, it would.
Absolutely. And so I just thought it was a water tower. All of us did. And then he said, look, he took some binoculars and he said, look what's up there. I'm like, what's up there? So these are all telecommunication devices. This was in 2008 when this picture was taken. So every month new meters are going up. And so he's like, you know, you really should, your choices are to move or you can do some treatment on the outside of your house. I ended up meeting a brilliant man from Germany named Helmut Hamilton. And he ended up coming to my house. And we've done, besides having my mat, I have that certainly is number one, but I used other Stetzerizers. You know Stetzerizers, what those are? You plug them in your wall and it helps with electromagnetic pollution. It helps to neutralize it. So that's where the world in which we're living. And then I love, again, I just want to, some of these things I'm going to mention a couple times because I think repetition is the mother of skill. I think that's Tony Robbins, repetition is the mother of skill. So I actually adapted what you see there on your sheet, that electrified times, and I put it, because this is really what I have in my book. But just to understand, this is like, to me, the simplest way to understand the value of the IMRS system. Every time you're on that mat for 8 minutes, minimum of 8 minutes, sometimes you need more, 16 minutes, you're going into that green zone. So all of the people that we're serving that have chronic illness, you don't have chronic illness unless you're in the green, you're in the yellow zone. I mean the red zone. Do you see that? If you really look at your papers too. So can I just take this? A lot of this world is living in these fields all the time. And even young kids. I mean, I don't know about you, but I get younger patients all the time with crazy hormonal imbalances. They're not sleeping, digestive issues. Again, this has a lot to do with it. If the Earth's frequencies, the Schumann resonance is, anywhere between 0 to 25, somewhere around there. This is where we feel good. So it's no wonder that most of us feel best when we're where? Outside. Absolutely. Absolutely. Outside. Even with all the technology outside, it's still better than indoors. And for a lot of the patients that many of us see, they're in that yellow zone. They're kind of in that critical stage where things are starting to not function, and they're not quite in this red zone. But once you have MS, once you have Addison's disease, once you have like a serious problem with sleep, even me, I was a healthy 30, how old was I then? I guess I'm 50 now. So I was like 43 when I started using this technology. I was running marathons. So that was great in one respect, but it's also very stressful on your body, right? And not sleeping, that was part of it. So what was really the origin of this sleep issue? There's a lot of different factors, but what I found out by doing all this research on electromagnetic pollution, I used to sleep with a clock radio right near my head, all throughout college, all throughout grade school, and I didn't know. I didn't know that it's something that's so close. It's only 2 feet from my head, but do you think I was getting that radiation from that clock? Absolutely. So one of the important messages as I talk to all my clients and people from all walks of life is to electrosanitize your life. I mean, for all of you who have patients, electrohygiene. Have your room, your bedroom, be like a sanctuary, exactly. Like, turn off your Wi-Fi at night, that's really important if you can. A lot of people don't even have that choice, which is unfortunate, depending on where you're living. But honestly, if you're not getting that deep REM sleep, you're not getting that repair cycle is not really happening. And people, even that are, I treat a lot of yoga instructors in Santa Fe. I treat a lot of, they're vegans and they're doing everything right, but there's something majorly not right with your body. And almost always we'll trace it back to some type of electromagnetic pollution, cell phone use, being in cars, trains, planes, they're all very toxic to our system. And we have to be more mindful about how we're doing it. So there's all kinds of great technology, but you could even use this system in your car too. So you can really get how important this is. Like if you find yourself, if you're looking at this and you're saying, you know what, I'm in this yellow zone right here, where you just, that's when you start having adrenal fatigue, and that's when you start having sleeping problems. But as I see patients, I often get my patients when they're in this kind of this critical defining moment time, and if they start changing their life, right, with just very simple things, it's never going to be some magic pill other than nature, in my opinion. After, like I said, researching and being a health detective and staying on top of the best in medicine, this is how, when you really see somebody have a radical remission, almost always it's some major forgiveness and some healing on the mental emotional plane and getting back to nature. They change their diet, they get off the sugar and the processed foods. That's the magic. And so within that, if you get in this field just 8 minutes a day, even if you're up here, you see, so it didn't take me, I slept pretty much from the first few nights using the mat, but it was really over a 6-week period that I started beginning to experience these frequencies more. I noticed that my ADD was way better. It still is way better. I mean, I still live a very huge life, but it's just so much more fun. Life is so much more pleasurable. I mean, for everybody that in my life that's had this technology, it's like the quality of life. How do you want to live? So many people are living so stressed out, like high five with their hair on fire, like just crazy. And our over digitalized children too. So this is it. So the EMF deficiency, to really help you understand that, again, why in today's day, why this technology is so important. The actual magnetic field, there is the Schumann resonance, but there's actually a measurement in Tesla. So the actual measurement of the magnetic field of the Earth used to be about 120 Tesla. And is it microtesla? No, it's Tesla. Microtesla. Now it's about 60 to 70. So just all of life is being compromised. And a lot of this is not to do with the electrified times we're living in. It's just the natural evolution of the Earth coupled with these electrified times. Population has pretty much doubled in the last 50 years, which is crazy, but it's doubled. And water, air, and food quality is diminished dramatically in the last 50 years. I mean, just, so the air that we're breathing, the water that we're drinking, we have to think about everything now, right? Where do you live? Like, why would so many people want to, this is definitely a desirable place to live. Santa Fe is also a desirable place to live. People are wanting to move out of cities because they don't feel good there. I think it's really amazing just to give value for all of you that have this system to really understand that the World Health Organization now has this new disease category called electrohypersensitivity. How many of you treat electrohypersensitive people or highly sensitive people? Pretty much all of us. I mean, this is the day and age, pretty much all of us have it to some degree. I dedicated a whole chapter in my book because, again, people have no idea that their heart palpitations, their vertigo, their digestive problems, their sleeplessness has to do with being in these electrified times. So this is a great advancement to see that it's actually being recognized as an issue. So when you correct some of that in your field, and again, what better antidote than the mat? So there's earthing sheets, which are great, but you have to be in those a long time. In 8 minutes you can get, which basically takes hours, in those earthing mats. So there's lots of great choices out there, but I haven't found anything better than PMF. Again, 8 minutes. And so, again, in my earlier days, I'm like, prove it to me. I have to see it. I have to see it. So I spent, months doing live blood cell analysis. I had someone else in my center who did live blood cell analysis. So every single patient that got on the mat, we would show them what their cells look like 8 minutes before and 8 minutes after. So has everyone seen these cells?
Is it dark field microscope?
What?
Dark field microscope?
Yes, yes, exactly. So you look at the cells, and most people have, the red blood cells are clumped together. So this is, again, just gonna help you understand why this technology works. That's called rouleau, and even healthy people, right? And what happens after 8 minutes, I go from the raisin to grape effect. When your cells look like raisins, they're clumped together, you're not getting the oxygen into your cells, you're certainly not detoxifying, and it's stressor, it's a chronic stress in the body. And so it looks like a party in the cells, literally, like afterwards, like look what happens after just 8 minutes being in this field. Again, the mat creates a field 3 minutes above, about 3 minutes, 3 feet above, 3 feet below, even your cat underneath your bed, your mat will get treated. So as everyone knows who has animals, like animals will always want to be with you on the mat. So that's pretty significant to see several hundred people have changes. Every once in a while, there'd be someone that we'd have to put on the mat for an extra 8 minutes. Like they're very toxic, or they're so dehydrated. That's what I want to emphasize for everyone. Every time you go on your mat, try to remember to drink 8 ounces of water and put some type of mineral in it, whether it's cell food. I really love Oxalate. It's a really clean and way better than Emergency. I have never met the woman, but I've talked to her several times. She's like a very young, she's in her 30s, but she was a flight attendant, and she had some serious embolism, and she had a serious health event that landed her in the hospital for several days, and that was like her awakening, like, wow, this is not healthy being at 30,000 feet. This lifestyle is going to kill me, and what am I going to do about it? And so she realized that she was mineral deficient too. So getting back to the water piece, hydration is so, if you really want to optimize every single session on the mat, drink some water and put some minerals. You feel it. How many people can actually feel the mat when you're on it? Most of you? But you can. The more you use it, but the more, certainly with better hydration. Healing is Voltage, and it's a fantastic book by Jerry Tennant. This is voltage. This is bringing voltage, creating a field around your body to enhance the healthy voltage in your system.
Oh, I was just going to say that Diana told us about a year ago about a doctor, I think it was her, a doctor in the Midwest who's working on research that actually shows that putting water on the PMF mat actually restructures the water.
Does.
Which would do it in your body, but you're talking about drinking water, well, maybe putting it 8 minutes on the mat, then drinking it, then getting on the mat.
Exactly. They have been able to see that. Also, thermography, I'm going to be able to show you actual slides, but just to really be conscious of the time that I have with you today, I'm just going to say, in case I don't have time to go through all my slides, I really do want to go back there and go through actually, how many of you actually done the Omnium? You had the IMRS? Most of you do. Okay. Well, so in addition to doing live blood cell analysis, I have a really good friend. She's a doctor of oriental medicine, and she's been doing thermography forever. I mean, she's really considered one of the top in our state. And so I'm like, I want to see what happens before and after in my own body. Again, people can do these demonstrations and show me, tell me, but I want to experience it myself. So I drove to Albuquerque and did a before and after also. She took a picture of my body and looked at how heat was being distributed through my body. And then I got on the mat 16 minutes. And it was quite a radical shift. So for her own mind as a diagnostician, and so think about it, when we have cancer, when we have disease in our body, when we have a really old injury, tends to be a hot area. So you can kind of see on a thermography, and I'll show you a picture here. And so what happened after 16 minutes is my circulation shifted dramatically. So what they found with PMF, it increases your stem cells, telomeres, and everyone knows telomeres are really important as part of our DNA, and as we age, our telomeres tend to get shorter. I'm a big, a close friend, actually, become a good friend with Norm Shealy. Does everyone know who he is? Dr. Norm Shealy. Dr. Norm Shealy is essentially the father of complementary alternative medicine. He's now 82 years old, and he's a big fan of this too, and he talks about telomeres all the time, but so much of this toxic world is really challenging us, again, at a cellular level, and our telomeres are shrinking a little bit too early. And so very important. So stem cells, telomeres, it increases oxygenation, right? Obviously, you're getting more oxygen into your tissue. Nitric oxide is really important. Like the number one disease really is moving up is cancer, but cancer and heart disease are right there together. But a lot of times as the age, we're not producing as much nitric oxide. It's a very important gas in our body. This is why we suggest people take arginine. But you're naturally going to get an upliftment. You're naturally going to increase your nitric oxide levels by being on this mat. So there's an increasing world of sexual dysfunction, erectile dysfunction. So I have worked with several of my clients to invest in this. Like everyone has a car, right? Most people have a car in this world. And it's going to, really, will be a time where PMF is becoming more of a household name, that it's going to be like non-negotiable. Like if I want to thrive and feel good, I need to have this technology indoors. And that's what a lot of my clients, now that they've seen me working with the system for 7 years, they love it when they're on it at my office. And the people that have been using it on a regular basis really see the radical change. So thermography is another one. Pulse oximeter readings, typically, that measures the oxygen saturation in your cells. Those readings are improved. People, I think, Diane, you were just mentioning a woman that I met when I was in your office yesterday. You want to just share that story?
I asked her, she's coming this afternoon, and I asked her if she would share. She was terrified, but she did write it down. In the 2 months since she's been coming in to help the spaces 3 times a week, her bone in her arm healed. It was just yesterday. Her orthopedic surgeon said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it, because he sees that nice white line and get the bone quicker than he thought he would. Helped with her colitis, numbness in her leg. Her vision has improved. She's not had a seizure in 2 months. She has a seizure disorder. So she stopped her medication. No upper back ache, no problem with back or leg, and helped her walk because her sciatic pain is gone. 86 years old. She doesn't know what this is.
She's 86? That's amazing.
It's just her doctor told
Wow.
her to lay on this thing.
Wow.
And this is all that's happened to her. It's kind of amazing.
Thank you for sharing. I could go on, like, spend hours and hours on all the testimonials I have. So far, has this been helpful? Is this people understanding everything that I'm talking about? So, mentioning this, when I talked about the electromagnetic deficiency on the planet right now, this is why about 25,000 species are going extinct a year. So we hear about the bees vanishing, right? The whales are beaching, but this is happening more. So what's happening to humanity? We might be living longer, but we're not necessarily living better. And so this is something that we're learning about. So I have a practitioner in Albuquerque. I was at his office when Greg was visiting. He pretty much runs North America, Swiss Bionic. And there was a woman in the office, she just happened to come in, and she does the bee, what's it called? When you do bee sting therapy. Anyway, we put the bees on the mat, and they totally chilled. They were in a plastic container, and it just to watch what the effect of the bees on the mat. It was amazing, unbelievable to see.
Question here.
Sure.
Question. You started to list technologies, and you said pulse something, thermography, and then
Okay, so thermography. Pulse oximeter. Pulse oximeter. Right. Dr. Carmichael, really a brilliant chiropractor in Denver area, he had a patient that desperately needed to have a hip replacement, but they couldn't. They said that they couldn't do it because her bone loss was so bad. So she had used the mat for 6 months and helped to regenerate her own bone and was able to have surgery. And at some point, it's like when you're that far along, will this mat regenerate it completely, and you don't need it? That was not going to happen in that case. But when you think about a lot of us perimenopausal, menopausal women, and as we age, all of us lose bone mass. So it's just another way to reverse that. That's huge because that's a big problem. This happens to be my clinical assistant when I first got this mat. His name was Sudarshan. And had a really severe case of eczema, and he spent thousands of dollars and went to all kinds of doctors. And truly, what happened to him by being in this field, just by working with me and working with my patients, because now I do have 7. I still have like 7 of these, and it's on every single table. So whether I'm doing an injection, I'm doing an IV, I'm doing acupuncture, everyone gets it. Only electro-hypersensitive people, some people with chronic diseases, they're just, everything affects them. And because they're so in the right zone, and I understand it because it took me a while. Like I felt like I couldn't be around this field, this healthy field, because it was almost, your cells are just really stressed out, and so it just takes time. So just, if you're working with your clients, just use 4 minutes at a time. But anyway, just by being in the field, working in our environment, we did a lot of things to electrosanitize our building. This completely shifted. It was pretty much a lifelong issue with eczema.
Just really quick on that,
Sure.
biofeedback thing which I purchased, does that help with those people that are extra sensitive to cut back on the frequencies?
Yes.
Is that a new thing, or have you been using that?
You're talking about when you're doing the heart rate variability, where it's choosing exactly what you need when you click on the
Yes.
air. Heart rate variability is another great aging indicator. We want to have higher heart rate variability is a better indicator, but it does.
I think this was put on the finger, I don't know.
Yes, that is.
Yeah.
That's called the IMOR, and it's heart rate variability.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, people who really watch that, if they really understand what the readout means, the mat will adjust based on what your body's giving out. So it's measuring the pulse in your body. I fortunately, I don't have that many people anymore. Every once in a while, even, I'm not really worried. I mean, I rarely have had a horrible case. I think Diane and I both have had one with somebody, but you never know. It was because they were on the mat. You know, this one woman ended up in the emergency room with a really bad neck ache, and she was new. She was just renting it out, so she thought that was why. She had all kinds of other stress going on in her life, but this is the only new thing. It's super safe. I mean, thousands of people have been on it, and I've hardly ever had an issue. And if there's those sensitive people, I just don't use it, or I just put it on the lower level. I think when in doubt, go low. And with this type of frequencies, more is not better. Energy medicine, more is not better. We can't get out of our mind. But I typically always use sensitive at night for all these, because that's also based on the Chinese clock. That's a liver time. I don't want to wake up at 2:30. I don't want to wake up ever in the middle of the night. So that's what I always use at night. And then Wolfgang and a couple other people say that you can increase your human growth hormone better if you use 10, setting 10. For all of you that know, again, we'll review this. Maybe Diane, you might want to take them through this later, but you find out what really works for you. Sometimes I've had a huge day, and then I have an event at night, and I'm pretty, still rattled. I just, I need 16 minutes instead of 8 minutes. Every once in a while, I'll feel like, if I do 60 minutes when all I needed, you find it out for your own body. You find out what works for you. And I just want to mention a couple things about this. Alcohol. I mean, for most, I was talking to Diane about this, but our bodies are really sensitive. So whatever you put in, if you drink a lot of alcohol, I just tell my patients, if you're going to go out and have a couple glasses of wine, because a lot of people will say, I don't feel good after I get on it, because it distributes the alcohol even more in your body. So it's something really important to know. And I have to say, I ran a marathon in Prague. I think I told you this story. I don't know if I mentioned it in the book, but I ran a marathon in Prague. This was in 2010, and it was really hot. And I did all my training.